Hi everyone, welcome to the Movieception Show. My name is Fariba, and today's it. It is Oscars. That means that we're now finally coming down to the final predictions for Oscars 2023. I know for me, it's something that I love and enjoy doing. Like, I've been doing it for about the last decade when it comes to really predicting who the winners are on Oscar night. And that's no different for the 2023 ceremony that we're going to have in about a couple of hours. And in terms of just doing the predictions, right? Like, I love crunking in the numbers, the statistics, the analysis behind it, reflecting on some of the past awards that we've seen so far and how that would be a way to predict how the winners are going to be on the final night, which is the Oscars. And yeah, I mean, let's just get down to it. And let me just say this, right? I finally got my final list for what I think is going to be the winners for Oscar night, who I believe are going to be the winners. And let me just say, I've never felt this stumped in a long time. I felt like last year, I think last year was probably one of my best predictions ever, because last year I only missed one out of the 23 categories that we had last year. I believe the one that I missed was one of the short films. That was the only one I had missed. And aside from that, I literally predicted the rest of the categories, the rest of the winners correctly last year, which was a rare feat for me, which I was just like impressed and amazed by. And again, I only missed one. So that was definitely, like, I know going into this year's Oscars, there's just a lot of hype for me just to just to replicate that success. Just missing one, like, it's a big thing. Like, 100% is like, that's a very rare thing. I mean, I don't know if there's ever been anyone who's correctly predicted Oscars 100% of the way. But I mean, for this, it's like, I mean, in terms of just doing the predictions for this one was a tough one. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be able to replicate my success from last year where I only missed one. This year was definitely a really tough predictions, because honestly, like, there was just so many great movies that we had last year. I think there's just so many of them where a lot of them do deserve it. There's a lot of neck and neck races that we're seeing in a lot of categories. Far more what I've seen with last year's, far more what I saw the year before that. I mean, it's been quite a while since I've seen something as competitive as this year's Oscar. And you're going to see why in just a second. But yeah, I mean, this was a really tough one. I mean, I've never felt this stumped. It's one of the reasons why it took me a while just to get this video done, because I needed to just take a quick look at, like, my predictions. Like, as you have like a quiz or a test or exam right in front of your paper, like, the way that you're having second thoughts about your answers, that's how I was feeling in some of the categories. And yeah, I mean, eventually I just kind of looked at it one more time, took a second look, took a third look, fifth look, reflected upon it, thought about it, analyzed it, cranked up the numbers, changed the rankings like maybe 3 or 4 times in some of the categories. And I finally got to the point where this is it. This is my locked predictions for Oscars 2023. So without further ado, here are my final predictions for the Oscars 2023 winners. So this is how I'm going to be doing my final predictions and how I'm going to present them. I'm going to be using a similar system that I did for the Oscar nomination predictions a couple months ago that I did. I'm going to use the same system for that, where I'm going to show off my Golden Derby, my list, and showing off the rankings. And then I'm just going to, explain my analysis, kind of my reasonings for how I basically determined what I believe is going to be the winners for each of these categories for Oscar 2023. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started with Best Documentary Short. So for me, I went with the pick of Elephant Whispers. I believe that's the one that is said to be the favorite to win this category. And not just that, right? I mean, I think that when I'm hearing about a film like The Elephant Whispers, I am thinking about The Octopus Teacher that won a couple of years ago as well. I believe in the same category too. And I think that because there's such a huge appeal for animal movies, that I think that's where it's leaning towards, that it's going to be The Elephant Whispers. Like, it seems to be the favorite to win. However, I am aware of the fact that The Stranger at the Gate is kind of could be a potential surprise. Like, there's a chance they could still, nab that award. One thing, because it is produced by Malala, who will be at the Oscars in a couple of hours. But yeah, I mean, it is going to be kind of a race between The Elephant Whisperers and Stranger at the Gate. But I believe that The Elephant Whisperers is kind of the strong winner in this case. I think it's going to be the strongest in terms of winning this category. So I'm sticking with The Elephant Whisperers for that. Next up, I have Best Live Action Short. So this was definitely a tough one because, for one thing, I know I haven't seen any of these shorts, but the way that for me, I've actually taken the time to read what the stories are for each of them. I took the time to look at the trailers and really just process what each of these films are, and kind of getting this mentality of what it would be like to be an Academy voter. Now, I know for a fact that for this category, the favorite to win is An Irish Goodbye, which makes a lot of sense. I believe it's one of the only films in this category that has an English language, so that could easily be one of the biggest appeals for anyone who, isn't an international voter. And not just that, but it is the only one to have won an award at a big award ceremony, which is that this is the film that did win a BAFTA. Now, having said that, I will not use the BAFTA as a strong predictor for this, because for one thing, the BAFTAs, for their category for live action short, it was just British live action short. So the other nominees in this category were not even nominated in that same category at the BAFTA. So it's really, I don't think it's a really good predictor to use in terms of this category and determining who's going to win. So I feel like that's not the way to really kind of determine the winner for this. But also, having seen the other categories and kind of what everyone has been thinking about, I know that a lot of people are leaning towards Les Pipillés. I mean, I apologize if I get this incorrectly, because I'm not French. I don't really have a strong French, knowledge or linguistics knowledge for it, but I'm assuming it's pronounced Les Pipillés. But that's the one I've been hearing as kind of the second strong favorite winner to kind of just win the category. For one thing, because it is the one that is airing on Disney Plus. I believe Alfonso Cuarón is involved in that film, so there's already kind of a huge, big name, filmmaker associated with this film. So it makes far more sense where there could be a bit of a favoritism already kind of geared towards Les Pipillés. Honestly, for me, having seen the trailers, I think from what I gathered was kind of the best film, or at least the best short, was a Red Suitcase. So that is a movie, I believe, about an Iranian bride, who just lands in I believe it seems to be France. And I mean, just from the way that you're seeing the trailers, you can tell that this girl does not want to be married to a very older guy. I mean, it really goes deep into kind of this custom about it, kind of just the questions of free will, and not just that, but woman empowerment and just a woman trying to make decisions for herself. I think that there's such a really strong message behind the Red Suitcase. Like, the story is very, very strong. The premise is very emotional. It's very raw. I think that because of that, like, by heart, I believe the Red Suitcase seems to be one of the better films in terms of the live action short. I think what I believe could be the most deserving of winning this category, or I think should win this category. I know a lot of people are saying that it should win, although it's a matter of will it really get the attention of, a great deal of Academy voters. Because again, we are dealing with An Irish Goodbye that has international voters. Then you have Les Pipillés, which was, released on Disney Plus, has a very well-renowned filmmaker associated with it, which might get a much bigger, voting body to win, to vote for that film in particular. But I hope that, for voters that have seen all these films, that they'll go with the one that seems to be the best. And I think that from what I gather to be the best by heart was The Red Suitcase. And typically speaking, if I'm going to, decide on any category where I'm going to go against the masses and go by my heart, I'm going to use it for this one just because I feel like The Red Suitcase really deserves it. Just from the story that I've heard, from what I've seen, what I've read. And honestly, it'd be great for that to be the case on Oscar night, like just to really defy the expectations. And if that's the case, that'll be great. I think that all these films deserve to, be the winner. I mean, they all are here as nominees for a reason, right? I'm gonna stick with The Red Suitcase, although, I mean, I would not be surprised if we see Le Pépinier or even An Irish Goodbye to win this category, but I'm gonna stick with my heart on this and, go with The Red Suitcase for Best Live Action Short. Alright. Let's go to Best Animated Short. Again, I've not seen all these films, so I'm just really going by general consensus. And so for me, I decided that the winner is going to be The Boy, the Mule, the Fox, and the Horse. Again, who doesn't love, a movie with animals, especially with animals in the title? And it seems to be a really cute, very heartfelt film. So I do not see how this film is not going to resonate with the whole, cast of Academy voters. Although, even though the horse, the mule, the fox, and the horse is the favorite to win, I would not be surprised if the Year of Dicks wins. I mean, let's be honest, like, it's a very funny name. It's a very funny title. I mean, we all remembered how Riz Ahmed really had to read out that title's name, and everyone just kind of, had that huge chuckle. Even I had this really just like WTF moment, just like, what did I just hear? And there's just no denying that that's a very interesting title to read. And I mean, I would not be against, this being the winner, and just to hear the presenter say, my Year of Dicks on Oscar night. So I would not be surprised if that happens. But in terms of what I think is going to actually win, I'm going to stick with The Boy, the Mule, the Fox, and the Horse. I think that has a really strong chance of winning. That's what it looks to be in terms of the general masses, and I'm going to stick to that. So that's my pick for Best Animated Short. All right, Best International Film. So, I mean, let's be honest, I feel like this is probably one of the most easiest categories to really determine the winner. It's clearly going to be All Quiet on the Western Front. Like, if you're nominated for not just Best International Film, but you're also nominated for the biggest award of the award ceremony, which is Best Picture, I think it's a pretty given, assumption that All Quiet on the Western Front is going to win. It's not the first time we've seen this. We've seen this a couple of times before with Parasite, Cold War, Roma. They've all had, Best International Film nominations as well as a Best Picture nomination. And I believe in all those cases, they won the Best International Film, category for that. And I'm going to stick with it. I think that All Quiet on the Western Front is going to win. It's been one of the buzziest films of the year. It's been getting kind of a similar, reception the way that we've seen with Roma, the way that we've seen with Parasite, the way that we've seen with Cold War, the way we've seen with Parasite. Although I don't think it's going to win Best Picture. Kind of a spoiler right there. But in terms of this category, it's pretty given. It's going to be All Quiet on the Western Front. And that's kind of considering the fact that Argentina in 1985 did win the Golden Globes early in the year, but I think it's pretty given. It's going to be All Quiet on the Western Front. It won the BAFTAs. It's won, I believe, the critics. I cannot recall that, but I believe the critics, maybe not, or maybe RRR may have won that, but it's been the favorite so far. So I'm going to stick to it, All Quiet on the Western Front for Best International Film. All right, Best Documentary Feature. So I went with Navalny for this one. That is also kind of the popular choice to win this category, which makes sense. I think a lot of it is kind of pinpointing to the political climate of what's going on, because this is a film about the journalist Navalny, the whole situation with Russia. So I would not be surprised if that's basically the case for this film, like that's really pushing and gearing it up to win this category because of its powerful message. I will not say that this is going to be a shoo-in for it. I think that there is a chance that Fire of Love or even All the Beauty and the Bloodshed could still win it. I mean, it's a pretty tight race for this one. It could be a very tight race for this one. because again, I think that out of the three, there's a chance that any of them could win, but I think the strongest has been Navalny to really take it home for best documentary feature, and I think that's going to be the case given sort of some of the more external factors associated with this film and sort of what's going to kind of set the message in terms of, you know, the film winning this category here. So that's my pick for best documentary feature. I think Navalny is going to win. I would not, I think there could be some surprises with Fire Love or All Beauty and the Bloodshed, but I'm going to stick with Navalny for that. All right. Best sound. So now we're finally getting to the technical categories. So one of the things I will say is that some of them were easy, some of them were super hard. And I'll let you know which ones those were. So for best sound, we have Top Gun Maverick, All Quiet on the Western Front, Elvis, Avatar: The Way of Water, and The Batman. So I'm going to stick with that the winner is going to be Top Gun Maverick. I think that for a film like this and just the category itself, like if we're going to be winning best sound, like there has to be a reason for it. And I know that for me, when I was watching Top Gun Maverick, I think one of the most immersive things about that film that I think really carried it and made it so epic is the way that you're really hearing the sound of what's going on as they are doing the action scenes, as they are doing, the flying sequences. The amount of work that they put into the sound and trying to make sure that it makes it feel so authentic and raw as you're not just watching it, but also hearing it. I mean, for me, I believe I'd seen it in IMAX. So, I still kind of get the feeling of just like the sound, just what I'm hearing from just what's happening on the screen. And a lot of that is just the compliments of the sound. Like, it would not be as powerful if it wasn't for just how incredible that they put into the mixing, the editing of trying to make sure that the situation seems right on the moment. So I think that for this film, like Top Gun Maverick, I think this is a film that really deserves to win this category right here because, again, I know throughout the Oscars are going to be, I think that this is probably one of the easiest categories to predict at the moment because, again, I think for me, when I was looking at it, I just went straight away for Top Gun Maverick because, again, it is a film that really just does a great job of really just mixing and editing the sound. I would not be surprised if there is a bit of a competition with All Quiet on the Western Front or even Elvis, for that matter. But I think that's going to be Top Gun Maverick. I think that's going to be the one of the big awards it will be able to kind of take easily. I think that the Academy is going to award something for Top Gun Maverick somewhere. And I think that that's going to be the case right here. You'll see why I mentioned that. But yeah, best sound, it's got to go to Top Gun Maverick. I think that's going to be the case for it. Like if there's any award that Top Gun Maverick deserves, it's going to be best sound. So that's where my pick is locked for. All right, the next category we have Best Visual Effects. I think it's pretty given, but I can read it aloud. We have Avatar: The Way of Water, Top Gun Maverick, All Quiet on the Western Front, The Batman, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. It's a given. I mean, there's clearly no contest here. It's Avatar: The Way of Water. Let's be honest here. It's clearly going to win this. I mean, it will be such a big, major shock if any other film wins this category. But it's going to be Avatar: The Way of Water. I mean, there's clearly no competition. I mean, that film really just did a lot of phenomenal work. It really, once again, when it comes to Cameron, right? I mean, I'm not the biggest Cameron fan, or less like Avatar. But when it comes to visual effects, he knows how to carry the visual effects. He knows how to make a very beautiful film with what you're seeing on the big screen. And I think that Avatar: The Way of Water really just does a phenomenal job of just showing the beauty of what is the Pandora world. And I think that it once again nails it with the sequel. And I think, again, it's a clear winner. It's going to be Avatar: The Way of Water. Again, I would be extremely shocked if any other, nominee wins. So, but I think it's pretty clear it's going to be Avatar: The Way of Water. There's just no competition about it. So, yep. That is my pick right there. Again, another category, I think it's pretty clear who's going to win. But yeah, we have Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, Marcel the Shell with Shoes On, Turning Red, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, and The Sea Beast. So yeah, it's going to be clear who's going to win. It's Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. It's been, sweeping across the board in terms of this category across all the awards that we've had so far. It's pretty clear how good this film is. It's far better than the one that we got from the Disney Plus one. And yeah, you can tell how much love and passion that Guillermo del Toro puts into this film. I mean, just his, his speech about his love for animations, the dedication that it should be for, how, it should be taken far more seriously than just, a film that is just, catered to, children most of the time, right? It is a form of art. And I mean, I do not, I will not argue with Guillermo del Toro with that statement. I mean, there is an art to it. He is so great when it comes to, doing this sort of incredible animation in terms of films like these, whether it be, using clay animation or, other sorts of, art forms. And I think that for this one, it's pretty clear it's going to be Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. You can feel the love out of this film. And I would love to hear another speech from Guillermo del Toro just expressing his love for animation. So again, clear shoo-in that it's going to be Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio for Best Animated Feature. Alright, so the next category we have is Best Song. So again, I feel like this is another one where it's basically kind of a shoo-in who's going to win. But in terms of who are nominated, we have RRR from we actually have Naatu Naatu from RRR. We have Lift Me Up from Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Hold My Hand from Top Gun Maverick, This Is a Lie from Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Applause from Tell It Like a Woman. So again, I think for this one, like, everyone is raving about Naatu Naatu and RRR. Like, I mean, just the amount of buzz it keeps getting each and every day, like, even since, like, last year. Like, it still is one of the most talked about movies, and how it really just became such a phenomenon in just, like, over a year. Like, I've never seen something like this for a long time, and I know a lot of people are really disappointed that RRR didn't get a Best International Film nomination. I don't even think it got picked by India, so it wasn't going to even get a nomination regardless. But I mean, let's be honest here. Like, if there's any way that, the Oscars can celebrate RRR, and just for the way that it became such a cultural phenomenon last year, but what better way to do it than to win Best Song right here, right? And I don't believe all of them, because I know that Lady Gaga will not be at the Oscars, but I believe at least with Naatu Naatu, Lift Me Up, I believe there's going to be a performance for those songs, so that's gonna be fun to see. So, but yeah, I think it's pretty given. Best Song is gonna be going to Naatu Naatu RRR. I would not be surprised if there's going to be any, potential competition, like maybe Lift Me Up, but I think it's pretty clear it's gonna be Naatu Naatu for RRR. So that's my final pick right there. All right, Best Score. So we have All Quiet on the Western Front, Babylon, The Banshees of Inisherin, The Fabelmans, and Everything Everywhere All at Once. So I'll be honest, I think this is one of the first categories I'm gonna, mention that I really was stumped on, because honestly, any of these nominees could win this category. Like, there's really kind of no clear-cut answer as to who's going to win in this one, because it's just kind of been all over the place. I mean, just for one thing, like, Everything Ever All at Once, this is a film that has really been getting so much momentum in the last week, not just last week, the last few weeks. And I'm not really surprised that it just managed to kind of just bump itself up into the Best Score nomination that not a lot of us would have predicted. But given how much love there is for Everything Ever All at Once, like, I would not be surprised if there's any potential, like, push for this film to even win Best Score. And then you have The Fabelmans, which happens to, I believe, could be the last John Williams score that we'll ever hear. Not just Steven Spielberg, but just ever in his career. Although he's kind of, retracted that statement a little bit here and there. But who knows? Like, what a better way to kind of, reward and, honor John Williams than to, give him one final hurrah, which is winning Best Score again for, like, what, the 6th time? So that could happen. And then there's Banshees of Inisherin, which, I mean, I actually just reheard a lot of the score because my dad was actually watching the film earlier today. And I mean, just hearing the music, I mean, it is very soothing. It's very harmonizing. I mean, I totally forgot how great the music was. So I'm not really surprised they actually got the Best Score nomination here as well. So honestly, that's a possibility right there. And then there's Babylon, which I know, I recall a couple months ago when, we were just doing the nominee, predictions, I had initially had it as my, my top pick to win this category. Cause I mean, let's be honest, like, the opening sequence, opening score that you hear in that film is just so upbeat. It's just so incredible. Like, you're really jazzed up. I mean, that opening beat is just incredible. I mean, that's something that I think still lives rent free in my mind. Which again, I believe this is a film that did win the Golden Globes. Justin Hurwitz had won the Golden Globes for this. Now, as you can see, I bumped it down as what I believe is going to be kind of second to maybe potentially winning this. And I think that is because All Quiet on the Western Front, I mean, this is a film, again, where we're talking about war, the rawness of it, just the intensity of what is war. Because, I mean, war films are very intense films, right? And, I mean, one of the ways to really just enhance and intensify kind of the sequences that you're dealing with, particularly any of the action sequences, right? You need to have the right song, the right music to really just amp up and build up just the momentum that you're hearing, not just in, what you're just seeing on the screen, but also hearing from the music to really just build up that tension. And I think that that's where it's really, really important for a film like All Quiet on the Western Front to really just enhance that experience. And again, once again, for a film that is nominated not just for Best International Film, but also Best Film, the big award Best Film, I think that All Quiet on the Western Front has a chance of winning a lot of awards for the night. And I think one of them is going to be Best Score, because again, I feel like this is a film that really needed to use that score to really just enhance that experience. And not just that, but it also won the BAFTAs, I believe, a couple of weeks ago. And in that same category, Babylon was nominated, and it did not win that category. It ended up being All Quiet on the Western Front. Now, of course, I mean, not to say that the BAFTA is a very great predictor for it, because relatively speaking, the voting body is going to be mostly kind of British, nationals. But even then, like, for the Academy, right, considering that it's got a far bigger, wider voting body, and there's going to be some international voters right there, I think that that's where a lot of the international voters are going to probably gear towards All Quiet on the Western Front, whereas I could see a couple of the American voters gearing towards Babylon on this. But I think the edge goes to All Quiet on the Western Front. That's where I kind of analyze where I think was going to be the winner for this category. Again, this is one of the tougher ones that I really was stumped on, because it could literally go to anyone in this category. Like, this is kind of like, there isn't a two-way tie, there isn't a three-way tie. It could literally go down to anyone in this category, because there's so many reasons why each of them could win. But I'm sticking with All Quiet on the Western Front just because of the BAFTA win, as well as the fact that we are dealing with not just, a group of voters, but you're also dealing with a lot of international voters, like a whole conglomerate who could be gearing towards voting towards All Quiet on the Western Front. So that's where my pick is. I'm sticking with that. All Quiet on the Western Front to win Best Score, which again, it could literally go down to anyone, but that's my pick right there. All right, let's get down to Best Production Design. We have Babylon, Elvis, Avatar: The Way of Water, All Quiet on the Western Front, and The Fabelmans. I think this is probably one of the easier picks, and I went straight with Babylon. I've had this back in my nominations, and I'm still sticking with this, that my top choice is going to be Babylon. I think it's pretty much given that this is going to be the film that's going to win this category. I mean, this is a film, let's be honest, this is a film that is, focused on the silent era, so it's going to have far more of the vintage sets, the production. There's even literally a whole scene where they have all sort of these different production stages all around, right? I mean, that alone should just give you an indication that this film is going to win Best Production Design. It's a given. I mean, this is a film that's dedicated to loving Hollywood, which means replicating the production designs for them, especially just to kind of give off the silent era aesthetic. And so I think with that case, right, I mean, it's pretty clear that Babylon's going to win this category. I think this is going to be the only category it's going to win. I can't recall if there's any others, but I believe this is the only one I believe it's going to win for the night, which I think is really deserving. If there's any sort of competition, I could see Elvis, but maybe even All Quiet on the Western Front, which I should have actually bumped it up. But regardless, I think it's going to be Babylon. I think that's just the clear winner for the night. So I'm sticking with Babylon for Best Production Design right there. All right, let's get down to Best Costume Design. So this one could have a little bit of a competition, but I'm pretty confident it's going to be Elvis that's going to win. And And I know a lot of people were talking about, oh, it might be Black Panther Wakanda Forever because Ruthie Carter, right? When she returns to doing the costume design for the film, and for all we recall, right, a couple of years ago, Ruth E. Carter was nominated for Black Panther, I believe for the 2018 or 2019 ceremony, and she did win the category. She won it. I believe it was one of the 3 awards that Black Panther had won for the night. And so there's still a strong chance that Black Panther Wakanda Forever could still win it. Now, even that being the case, I'm still going to stick with Elvis to winning this category just because there's just far more of a high stake that I believe Elvis had to deal with. And I think that one of it is trying to be very authentic in terms of replicating Elvis Presley's costume, right? That's not easy to do, and that's something that I'm pretty sure it's going to be the one thing that's going to set it as the winner for this category, just because not only are you replicating Elvis Presley's most iconic, outfits, like the black leather one, the jumpsuit that he wore, and of course, the one where the Las Vegas one that he always wears. And I mean, and not just that, right? But this is a film that isn't just dedicated to just a single year, a single decade. It's like 3 decades of Elvis that they have to go through in terms of the fashion, right? So you're dealing with the change of the era, you're dealing with the change of, Elvis's looks, you're kind of dealing with the change of like a lot of things are happening, right? And so because there's so many technicalities that they have to do in terms of trying to be accurate, not just to the time period, but just with Elvis himself, I think that there's just far more being put into the Elvis film in terms of the fashion I think that's where a lot of the appeal is going to be going towards. So I think for that, Elvis is going to win Best Costume Design. Again, I would not be surprised about Black Panther Wakanda Forever for Ruth E. Carter, but I'm sticking with Elvis for this one. So that's my pick right there. All right. Best Film Editing. We have Everything Everywhere All at Once, Top Gun Maverick, Elvis, The Banshees of Inisherin, and Tar. So let's talk about this one because this one I think this is one of the more tougher ones as well. Because I'm literally kind of going into kind of this like, okay, what are typically the statistics? What are typically the mathematics of how, the best film editing winners work? And if you were to ask, an average expert, right? Or even just a well-known expert and ask them, okay, how do you determine the best film editing winner, right? Typically speaking is when it comes to best film editing and best sound, they usually have a correlation right there, and that is whoever wins best sound also ends up winning best film editing. There's just this technicality about it, when it comes to it, there's just so much going on that like it kind of resonates with them. Because again, if you're going to be showing such great technical skills in the sound area, then you expect sort of the same thing with editing. And that's usually the case in most stances, most years where like, if you have a best sound and if you have best film editing, they're usually shared by the same, film winning it. In this case, I went against that logic. One thing because of Everything Everywhere All at Once is momentum right now, right? Because now one thing, right? Based upon the logic that I just mentioned, right? A lot of people would say, well, then in that case, Top Gun Maverick will win this category, which I honestly thought that was initially my top choice to win this category for best film editing. That's what I initially had. Until I started looking into kind of some of the other statistics in terms of what we've seen so far from other award ceremonies. And Everything Everywhere All at Once has actually been sweeping across the room in terms of best film editing. And that's where I went with Everything Everywhere All at Once for this pick, just because for one thing, it is the one that's been sweeping some of the big awards. It did win I believe the American Cinema Editing Awards for the comedy area. And in the other case, Top Gun Maverick won the drama category. So there's still a chance that there is a pretty tough competition between Top Gun Maverick and Everything Everywhere All at Once. Like, I think this is a very toss-up between either one of those two films. So there's still a chance that, the previous logic about, sound and editing kind of come two together. It could still be Top Gun Maverick, but I think given the fact that Everything Everywhere All at Once has been really just sweeping across the room in terms of winning best film editing, I believe it won the critics over Top Gun Maverick. And not just that, but I think just the momentum that Everything Everywhere All at Once has been getting, right? I mean, it doesn't need this category to win best film. I think that there's far enough categories that Everything Everywhere All at Once can win, needs to win, that I believe will push it to win towards the big award, which is best film. But I think if it does win best film editing, I think that basically solidifies its chances of winning best film for the night, which I'll go more into details in a second. But if it does win this category, I think that solidifies it. I think that pushes the statistics for, Everything Ever All at Once winning the best film award. It doesn't need it, but because of the fact that there's just so much love for this film, there's just so much momentum behind Everything Ever All at Once, just the amount of love being put into Everything Ever All at Once. I think that just because of that, I would not be surprised if it wins this category, and I'm sticking with that. So I think for best film editing, which is, I believe, one of the more tougher, one of the more competitive ones, I believe it's a two-way race between Everything Ever All at Once and Top Gun Maverick. I'm going to stick with Everything Everywhere All at Once as what I believe will be the winner. I'm going against the logic typically, and which is very unusual for me, but I'm just gonna break that cycle right here and stick with Everything Everywhere All at Once to win best film editing. Although again, I would not be surprised if Top Gun manages to, grab it as well, because again, I feel like that's another film that does deserve it. But Everything All at Once for best film editing. All right, best makeup and hairstyling. We have Elvis, The Whale, The Batman, All Quiet on the Western Front, and Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. So in terms of this one, I stuck with Elvis for this one because, again, similar argument with the costume design. I think for this film, again, you're emulating a realistic look of a real figure, right? You need to get their looks down pat. You need to make sure you get the hair right. You need to make sure you get the, the makeup right, everything of that sort, right? And for someone like Elvis Presley, there is definitely kind of this specific look that you have to kind of show to give this, this reminiscent look of who Elvis Presley is. And I think because of that, right, had it not been because of the makeup and the hairstyling, right, I think a lot of us would not have imagined Austin Butler being such having such the resemblance that is Elvis Presley in the way that we would never imagine it to be. And a lot of it is because of the makeup, hairstyling as well. And I think that really is where I think, because of the effect of that it's really kind of gearing towards to winning best makeup and hairstyling. Now, again, I would not be surprised if The Whale kind of, because it is kind of neck and neck between The Whale and Elvis, because The Whale does kind of, have Brendan Fraser having this fat suit on, and that one's really tough too. Like, that one's not easy as well. So I would not be surprised if somehow The Whale manages to really grab this category right here. Because again, it depends on how the Academy responds to The Whale. I don't know how it's really responding to The Whale, because that's just something that I haven't really been hearing about from the Academy. Just the sheer, appreciation for it. And I don't know if like the appeal for the film has kind of waned a little bit, whereas Elvis, I believe, is the one that has really been getting a far more stronger reception, not just, within the States, but specifically internationally. I think this is where the international voters are going to be the big determiners in terms of Elvis really grabbing a lot of the awards throughout the night, because I think Elvis does have a stronger, response from the international voters. And I think that's kind of where I'm gearing towards, okay, because of the fact that we do have international voters, Elvis is the one that's going to win best makeup and hairstyling. So I'm going to be sticking to that. I don't think a lot of the international voters are really responding well to The Whale in the way that we all would have thought initially, and I'll get into that in a second. But in that case, I think for this category, Elvis is going to win best makeup and hairstyling. All right, we're getting down to the big awards. So best cinematography, we have All Quiet on the Western Front, Elvis, Tar, Empire of Light, and Bardo. Now, let me just speak about this really quickly. I know I had initially put Top Gun Maverick as not one of the nominees for this category, but I literally was saying how that was going to be the front runner, that was going to be the shoe-in winner, and that definitely just went nowhere. Definitely was disappointed that somehow, and not just disappointed, but shocked that Top Gun Maverick did not get the nomination for Best Cinematography, but they get one for a different category, which we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, I still am a bit shocked that Top Gun Maverick did not get Best Cinematography. I think that film just had some of the most beautiful scenes, the most beautiful, images that we were seeing on the big screen, and just for not to get this best cinematography nod was just a disappointment. Like, I've never been this shocked just to see a technical award that should have been given to a film and not get it, but like not even get a nomination. So yeah, with Top Gun out of the race, clearly, I think at this point, the clear winner at this point is going to be All Quiet on the Western Front. It has kind of the similar sort of idea that Top Gun Maverick was also, was leaning towards, and that is, again, like, you need to get the visuals of this award itself, not too far from what Top Gun Maverick was doing with like the whole flight sequences. In this case, it's again, the actions of the war, what's happening in the war, that kind of makes it clear cut winner that's going to be All Quiet on the Western Front. Again, I think this is going back to my previous argument that All Quiet on the Western Front is nominated for a reason for Best Film. Not just Best International Film, not just Best Sound, but I think it's going to get Best Cinematography for that matter. So that's my case right there. It's going to be All Quiet on the Western Front for Best Cinematography. Alright, so Best Original Screenplay. We have Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Banshees of Inisherin, Tar, The Fabelmans, and Triangle of Sadness. So for this one, I initially thought it was a bit of a tough category to determine because here's how my logic really goes in terms of screenplays, and this also applies for adapted as well, which is the next one we'll be talking about in a second. But when it comes to screenplay, one of the things I've noticed is that there's a really strong correlation between the best film nominee, the best film winner, and the best screenplay winner, whether it be original or adapted. And that is that typically whoever wins the best original or adapted screenplay takes home the best film, award of the night. And so for this one, I mean, this is like really kind of hitting between Everything Everywhere All at Once and Banshees of Inisherin. I think that when we were going into this award season, there was technically a three-way race between Everything Everywhere All at Once, Banshees of Inisherin, and Fabelmans to win Best Picture. And here we have all three in this category. I think so far when it comes to the Fabelmans, I think it lost its appeal in terms of award season. It's just not there anymore. So I think that as of this point, it's safe to say that the Fabelmans has no chance of really winning some of the big awards of the night. It could still win some of the technicals like Best Score, but aside from that, I don't think it's gonna be winning anything else. Like, I mean, the response for it has gone downhill for it. And then there goes Everything Everywhere All at Once and Banshees of Inisherin. So those were the two films I think a lot of people were predicting were going to kind of be neck and neck, the two front runners to win the big award. And honestly, like, same thing with Fabelmans. Like, the Banshees of Inisherin, I believe, is a film that also has lost its momentum, whereas Everything Everywhere All at Once has been the film that's been really gaining that momentum. And because of that, right, I think there's just so much love for Everything Everywhere All at Once right now that I would not be surprised if it wins Best Original Screenplay, which would make sense for kind of what my argument's going to be later on regarding Best Film. So yeah, I think that for Best Original Screenplay, I think despite my early, inclinations, kind of just my early inklings of like, okay, I'm not super, confident about who's going to win, to now feeling far better in terms of how I feel who's going to win. I think it's going to be Everything Everywhere All at Once to win Best Original Screenplay. I would not be surprised if Banshees somehow unexpectedly wins. I don't think so. I mean, I think there's been really rare cases where, the Best Picture winner doesn't win the screenplay, and I think there has been rare cases where that is the case, but math shows that it's going to be Everything Everywhere All at Once if it ends up winning Best Film. So I think that's where I really need to hope and pray that if my prediction for Best Film works out, I need Everything Everywhere All at Once to win Best Original Screenplay. So that's my pick for right there. Again, I would not be surprised if somehow Banshees wins the category somehow, which again, I think if that ends up happening, it might change kind of the atmosphere of the room. And I think that's where a lot of people are going to start rethinking kind of what's going to end up becoming the case by the end of the ceremony. If anything out of the ordinary happens out of Best Original Screenplay. I mean, again, I think it's going to be Everything Everywhere, but if something changes, like, that is going to raise some eyebrows. So, but for now, I think I'm pretty confident it's going to be Everything Everywhere All at Once for Best Original Screenplay. Alright, so Best Adapted Screenplay, we have Women Talking, All Quiet on the Western Front, Glass Onion, Top Gun Maverick, and Living. For this one, I went with Woman Talking. So I know this one, a lot of people are also saying it's going to be All Quiet on the Western Front because, again, of the whole nomination for Best Picture. But I'm actually going to stick with Woman Talking for this one for a lot of reasons. I've actually had the chance to go and see this film, and I'll be honest with you, this is one of the most underrated, under the radar film in terms of the best film nominees. I'm surprised it didn't get as much of the nominations as it should. I think this is a film that should have gone far more, nominations than just Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Film. Cause I've seen this film myself, and this movie, yes, it is all dialogue, and it is all just, people talking, or woman talking, literally woman talking. But the film is so far more sophisticated than I thought it was going to be. And that is that the dialogue is just incredible in this film. The way that the characters are talking, the way that you have, the actors really just embodying their characters and really showing the passion of what they're saying to each other, having this debate about whether or not they should stay, they should go, or they should fight. I mean, this movie, I never thought that I was going to really be so emotionally invested in something like Woman Talking. I know I had actually done a review for it. I just never posted it. I should have done it for a long time. So if I have the chance, I'll post it. But honestly, in that review, I was talking about how this film is so beautifully well done. Just Sarah Polley's just dialogue in that film, just the way that she puts a vernacular of these characters and what they're dealing with. I've never seen something so beautiful as the way I've seen with Woman Talking. Woman Talking would not be the way it is had it not been for a screenplay. It's so strong that I do not see how the film will not win Best Adapted Screenplay. And honestly, it wholeheartedly deserves it. So because of that, I think Best Adapted Screenplay is going to go to Woman Talking. I definitely think it deserves it. If you have not seen it, I would definitely recommend it. I wish it could have gotten more nomination. I think that, Claire Foy, Jessie Buckley, heck, even Rooney Mara, they all did such a phenomenal job in that film. I wish they had gotten a bit more recognition with the performance. I think a lot of it was because the film was released, in terms of the wide release, it wasn't until much later on late, I believe it was late January, and by then the nominations had been announced, which really sucks, because I feel like this film should have gotten far more momentum, should have gotten far more attention. But again, great film. I recommend it. I definitely hope that it wins. It definitely deserves it. But yeah, Woman Talking for Best Animated Screenplay is my pick. Okay, I'm gonna actually go backwards. All right, so let's do Best Supporting Actor. We have Ki-Hoo Kwan for Everything Everywhere All at Once. We have Brendan Gleeson for The Banshees of Inisherin, Barry Keoghan for The Banshees of Inisherin, Jude Hirsch for The Fabelmans, and Brian Tyree Henry for Causeway. So I think it's pretty good. It's gonna be Ki-Hoo Kwan. I think that this is, and let me just say this, right? Out of all the acting categories, this is the one I feel most confident about who's going to win. And it's gonna be Ki-Hoo Kwan for Best Supporting Actor. I mean, just a comeback story is just incredible. Just for what he had to deal with for almost 2-3 decades of not finding any acting work, just kind of those low representation for Asian Americans in Hollywood at the time, the struggles that he had to face, and then just overnight, just finally get this redemption for himself. I mean, it's an incredible story. And I've been following him on Instagram as well. And I mean, he's such a cute and fun-loving guy. I mean, just his energy is just amazing. And I cannot imagine how his speech is going to be on Oscar night, because it's just wow. Just someone like him, just to have this comeback story. I mean, it's incredible, right? And I think that for this film, he really does such a phenomenal job of playing Evelyn's husband. I mean, it's just so great in that film. I mean, there's just nothing I can really say about it. There's a reason why he's one of these stand-up performances, in terms of some of the acting performances that we've seen last year. And I mean, I know a lot of people are saying that there could be some surprises with Brendan Gleeson or Barry Keoghan, because Barry Keoghan did win the BAFTAs. shockingly. But then again, as I mentioned before, there is sort of this bias towards, you know, more British citizens, not British citizens, but you know, British nominees. Whereas for this, I think it's pretty clear that, you know, Ke Huy Quan is going to win. I mean, there's just, you know, universal love for him. So that's my pick. That's the one I think I'm most confident about that's going to win an acting category, this one, because again, this is a very tough acting, you know, nominees that we have this year, which I'll get into in a second, but this is the one I'm really confident with, which is Ke Huy Quan for Best Supporting Actor. Best Supporting Actress. So we have Angela Bassett for Black Panther Wakanda Forever, Carrie Condon for The Banshees of Inisherin, Jamie Lee Curtis for Everything Ever All at Once, Cinema Shu for Everything Ever All at Once, and Hong Chow for The Whale. Alright, so I mentioned earlier today that one of the hardest categories I was dealing with was the best score, because basically anybody could win in that category. And one of the other categories I really was stumped on was Best Supporting Actress, because I've never, ever seen an acting category this competitive ever in my life until today. I mean, I literally was just going back and forth with like 2-3 names, and I'm just like, man, it could literally go to anyone. Because now let's kind of just summarize why this is a really tough category. Because for one thing, you know, Angela Bassett started off the award season very strong by winning the category at the Golden Globes and the Critics' Choice Awards. So she started off very strong. Then Carrie Condon had won the BAFTAs for Best Supporting Actress about a couple weeks ago. And then the one that I think really shocked a lot of people was Jamie Lee Curtis winning the SAG for Best Supporting Actress, which I personally was a bit shocked as well, because I did not think that was possible, but yet that is what ended up happening. I mean, personally for me, I think the stronger performance was Stephanie Hsu because of what she had to put into her performance. Whereas I think like Jamie Lee Curtis is great and all, but I think that Stephanie Hsu had a far more powerful performance and much more memorable one than I thought with Jamie Lee Curtis. Although again, she's still phenomenal and all that sort of thing. And I think there is a bit of kind of this bias towards Jamie Lee because again, she is well known in the industry, and I feel like that could really play a big role in it. But again, I'm not sure how that happened with SAGs. I think that if there was going to be anybody winning from Anything Everywhere All at Once, it's going to be Stephanie Hsu. But yeah. Having said that, this is a very tough category because as of this point, it could literally go down to anyone. Even Stephanie Hsu could just end up winning this out of nowhere, right? So here's kind of how my thought processing was for this, right? So I think that yes, even though Jamie Lee Curtis had won the SAG a couple, I think it was just last week or so. Even though she had won the SAG, I think there's going to still be far more competition. I think that with the fact that, you know, Stephanie Hsu was also nominated, so they're both coming from the same movie. So a lot of people, you know, I mean, the fact that we had, because now the SAG is more, you know, acting voters. That's how the main voting body is. Whereas when it comes to Academy, there's a far broader, you know, voting body that you're dealing with that isn't just actors and actresses, but you have directors, you have producers, you have marketers, you have, you know, costume designers, you have all those types of people, right? And so with that being the case, I think that there's going to kind of be a split between Jamie Lee Curtis and Stephanie Hsu for anyone who loves Everything Ever All at Once, right? Now, not taking with the fact that Everything Ever All at Once doesn't have already a huge momentum, right? But I think that because there is already such a huge momentum, and that you also have two actors in the same category, that it's going to really split the vote. And I think a lot of people, you know, who do love Stephanie Hsu, like I would, right? Like I would probably be voting for Stephanie Hsu over Jamie Lee Curtis, right? So there's going to be a split with that. So I think because of that, I think Jamie Lee Curtis is dropped down to what I think is going to be my third rank to winning this category. So then it really comes down to really just Carrie Condon and Angela Bassett. Like it's a really back and forth with this. Like I was literally going back and forth between Carrie Condon and Angela Bassett. Like literally this morning I had Carrie Condon, and before that I had Angela Bassett, but then I was like, you know what, I'm switching it back to Angela Bassett. And here's what I'm going to say, right? So Carrie Condon did win the BAFTAs, and I think that this is where there is the BAFTAs being a far stronger predictor with this one, and especially in the acting category, because there have been cases where the BAFTAs has managed to somehow predict the Oscars, whereas the SAGs and the Golden Globes were not correct in that, right? And I'll go into some of the examples in a second. And the way I'm thinking this is that I'm reflecting on the year that Regina King had won her Best Supporting Actress award. That's the vibe I'm getting out of Angela Bassett's win in terms of that. Because I believe Regina King had won the Golden Globes. I believe she had also won the Critics' Choice, but she did not win the BAFTAs and she did not win the SAGs because she was not nominated for either one of those award ceremonies. I think Emily Blunt had won the SAGs, and was it Rachel Weisz who won the BAFTAs? I believe that was the case. So with that being the case, and yet, you know, even despite the fact that she wasn't nominated, she still won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. And I think that's kind of what I'm going to be using as my standard, kind of just my way of picturing this moment, where I think that we're getting a bit of a repeat of that with Angela Bassett. Because for one thing, again, I think because we are dealing with a far broader voting academy, you know, making the final casting picks for the Oscar winners, I think there's going to be far more love from a much more general body this time around than we did with the BAFTAs and the SAGs, right? I think a lot of them are going to still push towards Angela Bassett to winning this category, because of the fact that there's a far more, you know, a diverse group of voters in this case. And then the second thing, of course, is that, you know, Angela Bassett is a you know, nominee who has yet to win an Oscar. I think there's going to be a lot of that. I know that's kind of the message that's also going to be kind of geared towards Jamie Lee Curtis as well. I think that's kind of where she won the SAGs, where there was a bit of that sort of that argument as to how she won that for the SAG. I think that's going to be the same argument that I'm going to use for Angela Bassett, because she has yet to win an Oscar. I don't think she won that one year where she was in that Tina Turner film, I believe, where she played Tina Turner, I think, right? And so if, just to make up for it, let her win the Best Supporting Actress, right? And then not just that, I think her performance in Black Panther Wakanda Forever was really powerful. I mean, this is a film that really had a lot going on. They lost Chadwick Boseman. Her character really had to kind of level up in a bit to really just take this really strong, powerful leader role in this film. And she did such an amazing job just really carrying it. I think that with her, she really carried that film big time. And I think that it wouldn't have worked had it not been for the masterful performance from Angela Bassett. And I think that that's what's really going to push her to winning this category. Now, again, there's still a chance that Carrie Condon can still win. Again, she won the BAFTAs, and she will have a lot of these strong international voters really kind of, you know, gearing towards her, right? So it is a really neck and neck situation between Angela Bassett and Carrie Condon. I think a lot of the American-based voters are going to go towards Angela Bassett, and some of the more general supporters, you know, not just the actors, but directors, producers, all of these people, right? I think will gear towards Angela Bassett, whereas a lot of the international voters are probably going to be, you know, favoring Carrie Condon, which again, it's like, again, we're having a really, really neck and neck situation in terms of this category. I hope it's Angela Bassett, because I think she really deserves it. I mean, it would definitely be a big moment for Marvel Studios to finally have not just, you know, Oscars. So they actually have won Oscars. They've won Oscars thanks to Black Panther. But maybe make history now that they can actually have an actor who's won an acting category, which would be really historic for Marvel right there. So again, I think that if there's anybody who deserves it, it's going to be Angela Bassett. I'm not, you know, again, I'm not silencing the fact that Carrie Condon may not win this. She could be a really big surprise for that. Again, there's stats behind it that really, really pushes her. I think as of today, she is now the favorite to win Best Supporting Actress over Angela Bassett because of the stats, because of the numbers. So it's really, really neck and neck between Angela and Carrie. I'm sticking with Angela because I think my heart is telling me that it's going to be Angela Bassett. So even despite kind of how things have played out overall, that somehow just isn't really adding up to it now. But I'm going by my heart, and I'm going to stick with Angela Bassett. She was my first pick in the beginning, and I'm going to stick to it. So Angela Bassett, who I pick, is going to win Best Supporting Actress in one of the toughest acting categories that I had to ever predict in my life. But yeah, that's who I'm going with, and we'll see how it goes. It's going to be one of the I believe it's going to be one of the first awards announced. Maybe not. I think it's going to be Best Supporting Actor. We'll see about that. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who's going to win this, because again, that's going to be the one that everyone's going to be watching, just because of how competitive this is, because this is really one of the three-way races that none of us would have anticipated, and yet we're really getting down to a three-way race just hours before the actual ceremony. So insane how that works out, but look forward to seeing who wins, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed for Bassett. So that's my pick right there for Best Supporting Actress. All right, let's get down to Best Actor. So again, this is a very, very, very tough one. As I mentioned before earlier in the year, right? When the nominees were announced, or were just about to be announced for Best Actor, I had, said that this was going to kind of be a three-way between Colin Farrell, Brendan Fraser, and Austin Butler. And I was right. I mean, there was definitely that competitiveness between the three actors. I think as of this point, we can, take out Colin Farrell out of that equation now. I think it's pretty clear that, having seen the Golden Globes, the critics, the BAFTAs, the SAGs, this is going to be a battle between Austin Butler and Brendan Fraser. It's pretty clear cut. This is a very, very close one. Probably far more closer than Best Supporting Actor, because at least Best Supporting Actor is like 30%, whereas Best Actor, we're dealing with like a 50-50. It could literally be any one of these two guys. Because honestly, they both gave some of the strongest acting performances last year. For Austin Butler, he literally had to kind of replicate the mannerism that is Elvis Presley, which is really not that easy. I mean, it's not very easy to really, embody like a real life individual and trying to get the position of these individuals, whether it be the movement, their mannerism, the way they're talking. I mean, he literally got it down to the way he talks and the way he speaks, right? And seeing how that works, he's still speaking as if he's still Elvis. So that's kind of, I'm not even going to go into that, but that's Austin Butler right there. And then we have Brendan Fraser, similar to Ke Huy Quan. This is an actor who was blacklisted for a long, long time because of things that happened in the past, and because of the powerful people who tried to, destroy his career. It took him a while to really, get back on his feet. And then finally he got that movie that really just, got him back. He got his comeback, and that is The Whale, right? I mean, this is an actor who we never really thought would be, able to do dramatic roles. We've always seen him doing action, we've always seen him doing comedy, but we've never really seen him done dramatic roles. And here it is. He does a dramatic role and really gives one of the most emotional performances in the last year. And so again, like, honestly, either one of these actors deserves it. I mean, they're both really good at what they were tasked to do with their characters, and they both brought in such really strong performances, and I would not be surprised if either one wins. Like, I mean, this is a very, very tough one. Again, this is one of the toughest ones I had to kind of predict. Because for one thing, again, Austin Butler won the Golden Globes and the BAFTAs, whereas Brendan Fraser won the Critics' Choice and the SAG, right? And typically speaking, the SAG would be kind of where I would have leaned towards as a stronger predictor. I initially did have Brendan Fraser for a little bit after the SAGs on winning this, but I went back to Austin Butler. And here's why. And here's why I'm gonna say this, right? As I mentioned earlier before, there's a really strong, positive response coming from the international voting area, right? They seem to really love Elvis. They love this film a lot. We saw that the BAFTAs, I mean, they were I believe that's where Austin Butler had won Best Actor. I think that that's where I think that because of how close this race is going to be, like it's really like really cutting thick and thin on how this category is playing out. And I think that's so thin that I would imagine that the winner, like whoever wins, probably wins by a hair. And that I think is going to be that's probably going to be the responsibility of, that's probably going to be accounted for because of the international voters. They really love Elvis. That's how I'm getting this vibe of. They love Elvis. I'm not getting a lot of love from them in terms of the whale, because I'm not hearing a lot about the whale from them. Whereas I know the American voters are probably going to be far more, geared towards Brendan Fraser for the whale, over Austin Butler. But I see the international voting body being more so towards Austin Butler over Brendan Fraser. So it's really kind of this huge clash that we're dealing with, where we have two kind of groups of people that are really just, kind of putting this as a really, really close race between two actors on winning this category. And I think that by the end of the day, because of the fact that Austin Butler had won that BAFTA, which I'm gonna use that as my predictor, because in the last two scenarios where we've had this, the BAFTAs got it correct. And I'm talking about the one a couple years ago where Chadwick Boseman had won the SAG posthumously, and then Anthony Hopkins had won the BAFTAs for the Best Actor category. And at the end of the day, the Oscars, the winner for the Oscars ended up being Anthony Hopkins, right? So that's what I'm looking at. I think the same situation I saw, I believe, a couple years ago when Casey Affleck had won as well. I think Denzel had won the SAG, Casey won the BAFTAs, and then Casey ended up winning the Oscars for the category. So I'm using that as my mentality with that, because it's such a close race. I think the international voting body is going to be far stronger with this one in terms of who wins in this category over the American voting body. So that's how I'm determining this. I think the numbers go towards Austin Butler. My numbers are going towards Austin Butler. And I think that not just that, but because last year when I saw Austin Butler playing Elvis Presley, I literally was just in shock at how authentic that performance felt. Just this realism I was getting out of it. Just the amount of just dedication for how he put into that role. Just getting down to the T in terms of really just getting into Elvis. Like the mannerism, the voice work, the way he talks. I mean, I think after having seen that film, like I recall saying that this guy is going to become a frontrunner for Best Actor at the Oscars. And guess what? I was correct. Although I'm not as confident of him winning this category as I thought initially, because Brendan Fraser is really good too. I'm going to stick to my guns and just what my gut is telling me, and that is Austin Butler is going to win Best Actor by a hair. I would not even be surprised if somehow there ends up being a tie, because it's just this close. We never really had a tie in the Best Actor category. I know there was one for Best Actress like 30, 40 years ago, but I would not be surprised if we really run into a very tight race, that this just ends up becoming a tie at the end. So, but for now, I'm going to stick with Austin Butler for winning Best Actor. I think that's what the numbers are saying. That's what my gut is telling me. I'm going to stick with that. So yeah, that's my final pick right there. Austin Butler for Best Actor. All right, let's get down to Best Actress. Okay, I swear, this is probably one of the toughest years in terms of predicting the acting categories I've ever had to deal with in my life. Because typically speaking, when it comes to acting categories, we usually have a good 75% confidence in, of who the winners are. Technically speaking, out of the 4 acting categories, we kind of have a pretty solid idea who's going to win in 3 out of the 4 categories. In this case, we're not really getting that, of course, because the only category that I feel super confident about in terms of who the winner is going to be is Best Supporting Actor, which is going to go to Ke Huy Quan. but the other ones are just really tough. But yeah, let's all right. So yeah, let's just get down to Best Actress, because this is the one I really need to talk about because a lot of things happened. So for one thing, I was pretty correct in some of the assumptions that I made. This is gonna be a tough race. Now let's just go back to the beginning, right? In this category, I honestly had Cate Blanchett locked to win this category straight up. Like, I mean, she was winning the Golden Globes. She had won the Critics' Choice. She had won the BAFTAs. Even before the nominations that came out, I was super confident that Cate Blanchett was going to win Best Actress because her character of Lydia Tarr is basically character study. That's the whole deal of it. So it really relies on the actor to really just give a really strong performance, embodying them to a point where they kind of do feel real. I mean, it got to a point where on Twitter, some people actually thought that Lydia Tarr was a real person. That's how incredible Cate Blanchett's performance was in Tar. Now, I've said this before, I'm not the biggest fan of the film. I don't think it's one of my favorite films of the year. I thought there was far better films that I got last year, but I do not, I will not deny the fact that Cate Blanchett was absolutely remarkable in that film. I mean, just the way, just the sheer talent, the sheer amount of effort that she puts into that role, the magnetism that she puts into that role of a composer who, has a far darker past, right? I mean, I thought that was just a shoo-in. Like, that was a given that Cate Blanchett was going to win. And I even said that, like, earlier in the year, that, Cate Blanchett is basically a shoo-in to win this category. She's very likely to win it. I felt like the only chance of somebody who would challenge her to that category was going to be Michelle Yeoh. That was a comment I made. I did make that comment. I said it right there, that if there was anybody who would have a run for their money against Cate Blanchett in terms of winning this category, is going to be Michelle Yeoh. And here we are. Never would have expected for me to pull a whole U-turn and who I thought was going to win Best Actress. Like, I mean, Cate Blanchett is great. I mean, she's incredible. Again, this is a really tough one as well. It could really come down to Michelle Yeoh and Cate Blanchett. It's really neck and neck. We're dealing with another neck and neck situation. It could literally come down to just these two frontrunners right here. It's really coming down to them two. But I did not think that it was going to be this scenario, getting closer to the end of, award season, getting closer to the Oscars. I did not expect this to be the situation. After Michelle Yeoh had won the SAG, I literally made a whole freaking U-turn with who I thought was going to be Best Actress. Like, I mean, I've never been that quick in changing my answer. And I think that, again, a lot of this has to deal with the amount of love that Everything Ever All at Once is getting out of this award season. Like, it started off pretty good in the beginning, but as the days kind of went by, the momentum, the buzz for Everything Ever All at Once just kept getting higher and higher. And it just became monumentum. I mean, the way that they got the response, the reception throughout this award season has been remarkable. I've never seen such a film get so much praise, so much of this positivity, just this amount of love, right? I've never seen something like this. And I think that really has helped push Michelle Yeoh's chances of not just really becoming a far more competitive, nominee in the Best Actress category, but honestly, I think she's now the one to win it. I think it's very clear at this point. I mean, for one thing, we're now still kind of talking about the fact that it's been such a long, long time since we've had a woman of color, somebody who, is non-white, to have won this category. The last time we've had this was Halle Berry, and I believe it was like 2002. It's been a long, long time we've had someone like that. And Michelle Yeoh deserves it. She's great. I mean, if Cate Blanchett doesn't win, that's totally fine. She's already won 2 Oscars. And she's already solidified herself as one of the best actresses out there. She could probably get far more, Best Actress nominations in a far future. But Michelle Yeoh has yet to win. I mean, she's remarkable. Her story is incredible. I mean, it doesn't far off from what, Ke Quan has to deal with. I mean, just the fact that we've been seeing a huge Asian representation, the influence of it, and just kind of seeing this change and this momentum of everything, right? I mean, if Michelle Yeoh wins, it'll just be major. And honestly, just again, just the amount of love I've been getting out of this, right? Like I'm already getting the feel that the Academy, like the American voters, are going to gear towards Michelle Yeoh. I do see a lot of the international voters, favoring Cate Blanchett, but I also think that a lot of the international voters are also going to vote for Michelle Yeoh, especially if you have any of the international voters who happen to be Asian. So that's going to be really big thing to kind of think about going into the Best Actress, announcement that we're going to get, and just how winners are going to be presented. It's a really tight one. I think another thing that I was also kind of picturing is that we do have Andrea Riseborough nominated in this category. And I think that's what I think really kind of got me this, that really pushed the idea that Michelle Yeoh is going to win this category. Unlike some of the other award ceremonies that we've had, Andrea Riseborough is nominated for Best Actress, Oscar's Best Actress, right? That became a huge conversation a couple months ago regarding kind of this lobbying thing, the campaigning, whether it's legal, not legal. That whole deal happened. Regardless of being that the case, right? I think that you can't really fault Andrea Riseborough. I think she's a really great actress. I've seen her work before. I've seen her in the films like Death of Stalin. I haven't seen To Leslie as of yet, but I mean, I would not be surprised that she deserves this nomination. There's a reason why for it. There's a lot of, unethical things that have happened, but again, I would have wanted, Danielle Deadwyler to be nominated, but I mean, honestly, like, I would not take away the fact that Andrea Riseborough, the fact that she did get the nomination means something. Even Cate Blanchett had campaigned for her nomination as well at the Critics' Choice. And so I think that because there is Andrea Riseborough, I think a lot of the American voters might also kind of pick Andrea Riseborough as their picks to win. I think that a lot of Cate's votes are going to be taken away and pushed towards Andrea. And I think that's because of that, I think that only enhances Michelle Yeoh's chances of winning this category, because of the fact that we do have this unusual anomaly that is Andrea Riseborough, who, as of until this point, we never really seen how she would kind of impact how the category will work out, how that would determine the winner. And I think that at the end of the day, that would actually hurt Cate Blanchett, which I think that she probably wouldn't mind. I don't mind the fact that she might lose some of the voters for this category to Andrea Riseborough, because again, she herself actually campaigned for her to be nominated in this category. So with that being the case, I think because of the fact that Andrea Riseborough is the anomaly in this factor, and that I think that a lot of the acting, American acting voters, did I say that right now? What I meant to say is all of the American acting voters are probably going to be, putting some of their votes towards Andrea Riseborough that could have been given to Cate but didn't. I think that's going to play a factor into Michelle Yeoh winning this category. And because of that, I think I'm far more confident that Michelle Yeoh is going to win this category because of this anomaly that we have in this, category. And a lot of just how I believe the voters are thinking, whether it be looking at the American body versus the international body. And yeah, I mean, again, like anybody, yeah, I think at this point that's going to be the case. Like, I think even with the international body, I think there's going to be a lot more of the voters who will be gearing towards Michelle Yeoh. Even if, like, the more, I think the common consensus for them is probably going to be towards Cate Blanchett. There's a lot of ways to kind of think about this. But yeah, I think Michelle Yeoh is going to win this category. I mean, the fact that she won the SAG, the fact that, she did win the Golden Globes for the comedy category. So they both share that. But, yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be Michelle Yeoh. I hope she wins. I would not be surprised if Cate Blanchett does take it home. That was initially my first pick. But we'll see how that ends up running on the day of the Oscars. That's going to be one of the final ones that we're going to hear. But yeah, very, very tough acting categories that we've been seeing this whole season, and now look where we are. We can't even determine. We don't have a huge confidence for them. But yeah, that's my picks for the acting category right there. So yeah, Michelle Yeoh for Best Actress is who I'm going for, and we'll see how that goes. And yeah, and right after that, I think after Best Actress, everything else is just really easy for me. So Best Director, we got the Daniels from Everything Everywhere All at Once, Steven Spielberg for The Fabelmans, Mark McDonagh for The Banshees of Inisherin, Todd Field for Tar, and Ruben Östlund for Triangle of Sadness. I think it's pretty clear it's gonna be the Daniels. I mean, they're very clear cut to win this. There isn't really any competition. I mean, initially speaking, a lot of people thought that Steven Spielberg was going to win this category early on. I think they had won the Golden Globes, but after that, it's just been the Daniels. They had won the critics. I'm not sure if they won the BAFTAs because I can't really remember, but they did win the DGA. I think that's the biggest factor for this. They won the DGA. The fact that the Daniels won the DGA, I think that's kind of the strongest predictor in terms of determining the Best Director. I was waiting for the DGAs to announce their, the winner for the director. I think that was kind of where I was just waiting to kind of see, like, okay, where does this go towards? And the fact that it did go to Daniels kind of basically solidifies that the winner for the Best Directors, it's going to go to the Daniels. It's going to be them. I think that at this point, there's no contest. The Daniels are going to win it. Again, there's so much love for Everything Everywhere All at Once that, I mean, I would be surprised if the Daniels don't win it. I mean, if there's anybody who has any chance, I mean, it could be Steven Spielberg, it could be McDonagh, but that's just by a hair. Honestly, I think it's just gonna be the Daniels. It's just pretty clear cut. Again, if they won DGA, they won the critics. They've been winning big time. The DGA, again, it's a big factor in this, and clearly it's gonna be the Daniels. So that is my pick right there for Best Director, which are going to the Daniels for Everything Everywhere All at Once. And finally, the biggest award of the night, the one that we're all waiting for, which is Best Picture. So we have Everything Everywhere All at Once, The Banshees of Inisherin, The Fabelmans, All Quiet on the Western Front, Top Gun Maverick, Avatar: The Way of Water, Elvis, Tar, Woman Talking, and Triangle of Sadness. So I've seen 8 of the 10 movies. I still have 2 to watch. I'm going to actually watch later tonight. But there it is. The 10 nominees for Best Picture. And I never felt this confident about who I believe is going to win Best Picture. And that is Everything Everywhere All at Once. I've never felt this confident for a film to win a Best Picture category. Because typically speaking, Best Picture is one of the toughest ones to predict. There's typically about 2 or 3 frontrunners. And even then it gets really close into who's going to win. For this one, I think it's pretty clear cut. I mean, the amount of love, and I cannot repeat this any further, but the amount of love that Everything Everywhere All at Once is getting is just incredible. I've never seen such a huge reception for it. And I think, and it shows. It shows throughout the whole award season. I think I believe they broke a record recently that used to be held by Lord of the Rings, so that's one thing. People cannot talk nonstop about this film. I think the fact that they're pretty shoo-in to win Best Director, Best Supporting Actor, Best Screenplay. I think, again, Best Screenplay is the one I'm keeping an eye on in terms of how that would determine Everything Everywhere All at Once winning Best Picture. But honestly, I think I'm very confident that they're going to win that. They don't need the Best Film Editing Awards to really kind of solidify its win, but if it does win, it only strengthens its chances of winning Best Film for the end of the night. And if Michelle Yeoh does end up winning Best Actress, I think that basically sets it. That, if they're able to checkmark everything that I have mentioned, from the technicals, some of the, the heavy hitters, to the acting categories, as well as the Best Director, which I'm pretty sure they're going to win easily. I think there's just no way that Everything Everywhere All at Once is not going to win this category. It's just the easiest pick. I've never seen so much of the push that is Everything Everywhere All at Once to win this category. I mean, again, there used to be a 3-way tie between The Fabelmans and The Banshees of Inisherin and everything, but Fabelmans, just the hype died down so quickly, and the Banshees and Inisherin hasn't really gotten a big of a response as I would have thought throughout this whole category. I don't even think I have them winning anything for the Oscars, unless, you know, Carrie Condon somehow wins Best Supporting Actress, which is the only category that and Best Score is kind of where I see any chance for Banshees to win anything, as well as maybe Screenplay. Like, again, I'm keeping an eye on those 3 categories to see what happens, but even then, the chances for Banshees are looking far more slimmer than I thought. Again, the only reason why I can still see Banshees being a possible, you know, surprise, possible shock, is again looking at the international voters, because that's where I can see a lot of them, the appeal being stronger for them in picking Banshees and Inisherin. But even then, I think even with the international voters, I think a lot of them love Everything Ever All at Once. They're going to be pushing towards that film. I think that's where I think that's going to set a lot of the check marks that I have for the potential wins for Everything Ever All at Once, such as, you know, Best Film Editing, Best Screenplay, and the fact that, you know, the tough race that we're dealing with in terms of Best Actress. That's where I'm going to see a lot of that push towards Everything Ever All at Once really winning big this year. Like, I don't think I've seen a film just having such this momentum, such this reputation, the amount of love, the energy that they're getting in this award season. I've never seen it before, and I think it's really clear cut that Everything Ever All at Once is going to have a big night. I would be very shocked if anything else happens. But again, it is the Oscars, right? The Oscars are known for giving us the biggest shocks of the year in the single night for some way of somehow. Let's also hope they don't, you know, mistake who the winners are. So hopefully we'll cross our fingers for that. But yeah, that is it. Like, that's right there. Everything Ever All at Once is who I believe is going to win Best Picture, and that basically concludes my predictions, my final predictions for who I believe are going to win the Oscars this year. I mean, I've never seen such a very tough set of, you know, winners, nominees, categories that we're dealing with. I've mentioned them before. The ones I'm going to be keeping an eye on are definitely almost all the acting categories, as well as some of the tougher ones like Best Score, even Film Editing and Screenplay. But otherwise, I mean, I'm very excited to see who the winners are. I'm very excited to see kind of where my accuracy is in terms of my predictions, because I highly doubt that I can replicate my high success rate that I got last year. That's going to be a tough one to really beat in like a long time. But I mean, hopefully with this one, maybe I'll see some success. I'm hoping for at least a good 70% or up. I would be very sad if it gets lower than that. Although again, it's a very tough year, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. And I'm very excited to see what happens at the Oscars, and I'll be watching that throughout the night. And I know Last of Us also comes out just around the same hour, between 9 to 10. I'm going to be prioritizing the Oscars, and I'm going to watch The Last of Us. But yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing tomorrow night. So tomorrow night's going to be it's not tomorrow night, it's tonight. But yeah, it's going to be a very big night for all of us. I'm going to be very excited to see what happens. I will not be doing a live reaction for it, so I'm just going to simply, you know, watch the, you know, Oscars, just keep an eye on my predictions and just keep tabs of how my record's looking like. But even with that being the case, I would say if you want to kind of follow me in terms of what's happening throughout the Oscars, kind of getting my input of what's going on, any big moments, kind of the big winners, what I'm thinking so far, any of my analysis, my discussions, so on and so forth. Make sure that you're following me on Twitter. I'm probably going to be, you know, posting a lot of things through there regarding kind of a lot of my opinions. So if you have not already, go ahead to my Twitter, which I'll put the link below, somewhere below here, like somewhere below. And just make sure to go click it, follow me right there, and make sure that you get to follow me as I'm watching the Oscars alongside with you. So yeah, that's it for my Oscar predictions. Those are my final predictions right there. What are your thoughts? Are there any categories that you agree with, that you don't agree with? What do you think about my picks overall? Do you agree with kind of my analysis regarding Everything Ever All at Once? Am I overhyping it too much, or am I not really kind of speaking to the lengths of how big this movie is? And Let me know what your Oscar predictions are. Who are your 23 winners for the night? Let me know what your thoughts are. Who do you think is going to be winning the biggest prizes? Who do you think are going to be the biggest shocks? Do you think there's going to be anything that's going to be the WTF moment that we got that is equivalent to what we got last year with the Will Smith slap? Yeah, let me know in the comments down below, and make sure to like and subscribe.